Jason Miller makes $180,000 a year. 2 years ago, you would have pointed at him and said, "That's the goal. Senior manager, bigger bonus, bigger house." His mortgage is $4,800 a month. His car payment is $1,150. His fixed obligations run over $9,000 every single month. He has 2.3 months of cash reserves. On paper, you think he's successful. But if his income pauses for 90 days, you're not looking at inconvenience, you're looking at collapse. And here's where you need to stop scrolling. You were taught that salary equals safety. It doesn't. Salary is flow. Safety is insulation. If you confuse the two, you build a life that only works when nothing goes wrong. And you don't live in a world where nothing goes wrong. My name is Robin, and I've spent years studying why high-income professionals quietly become fragile the moment their income rises. Here's the hidden rule. The faster your fixed expenses scale with income, the more fragile you become to even minor disruption. You don't feel it when you upgrade. You feel powerful. You move into the better neighborhood. You justify the higher mortgage. You lease the car that matches your new title. You normalize the higher burn rate. You tell yourself you earned it. You tell yourself you're advancing. You tell yourself you're secure. And that's when the income trap locks in. The income trap doesn't attack your income. It hardens your obligations. It waits until your lifestyle calcifies. It waits until your fixed costs outrun your liquidity. It waits until your margin disappears. And once your margin disappears, you don't need a disaster, you only need a delay. 3 months without pay? You're not stressed, you're exposed. You stop thinking about wealth, you start thinking about runway. Now compare that to Carlos. Carlos earns $92,000. His burn rate is $3,800. He has 11 months of reserves. If income pauses, you know what happens? He adjusts. He negotiates. He chooses. Jason can't. And if you're honest, you might not be able to either, because your salary went up, but your margin of error went down. You don't have a high-income life. You have a high-obligation life. So answer this without lying to yourself. If your income stopped tomorrow, how long would you stay calm? Not optimistic, not hopeful, calm. Because once your lifestyle requires uninterrupted performance, you don't own your success. You rent it. You think your base salary protects you. It doesn't. Your base salary maintains you. Your bonus stabilizes you. And when your lifestyle depends on stabilization, you're already exposed. This is what you're not seeing. Jason doesn't earn a clean $180,000. He earns layers. Base, bonus, equity, deferred compensation. You call that sophisticated. But sophistication doesn't mean security. It means variability. And variability plus fixed expenses equals tension. Your mortgage is fixed. Your bonus is not. Your car payment is fixed. Your performance rating is not. Your insurance bill is fixed. Your executive team's priorities are not. Do you see the imbalance? Jason's mortgage was approved using total compensation, but only part of that compensation is guaranteed. You tell yourself, "I always hit my targets." You tell yourself, "Leadership values me." You tell yourself, "This year will be similar." But bonus structures don't collapse loudly. They erode quietly. A revised KPI, a lowered multiplier, a new comp formula, a different CFO, and suddenly 20% disappears. If Jason loses $35,000 in expected bonus, his savings rate doesn't shrink, it vanishes. You're no longer building insulation, you're defending oxygen. And this is where it gets dangerous. You don't panic, you compress. You pause investing. You delay maintenance. You float a balance just temporarily. You tell yourself next year will normalize. But normalization is not guaranteed. Approval is not guaranteed. And if your income depends on approval, your behavior adjusts. You don't challenge unrealistic targets. You don't question shifting metrics. You don't argue your performance rating. Because your burn rate is louder than your pride. $9,000 every 30 days. You feel that number in your chest. You don't push hard in negotiation. You soften your tone. You manage perception. You over-deliver quietly. You avoid friction with leadership, because friction can affect rating, and rating can affect payout, and payout affects survival. That's Tier 2 suffocation. Numeric pressure, $9,000 per month. Emotional compression, constant performance anxiety. Compliance moment. Let's just secure the payout. You stop thinking long-term. You start thinking quarter to quarter. You stop asking, is this aligned? You start asking, will this protect my bonus? You think you're working for salary. You're working for discretionary variance approval. And variance approval is political. It's subjective. It's conditional. And when your income becomes conditional, your autonomy becomes conditional. Carlos doesn't live like that. His lifestyle doesn't require a perfect year. His reserves don't depend on executive mood. He can tolerate volatility. Jason can't. And if you're living on expected bonus instead of guaranteed base, you can't either. You start the year confident. You end the year hoping. And hope is not insulation. Hope is dependency disguised as optimism. Because once your life requires both performance and permission, you're not earning freely. You're earning conditionally. When your income becomes conditional, you become careful. You don't announce it. You don't even notice it. You call it maturity. You call it professionalism. You call it playing the game correctly. But you're shrinking. You used to speak directly. Now you soften your tone. You used to challenge projections. Now you say, let's revisit that later. You used to disagree in meetings. Now you nod and follow up privately. Because you don't just need to perform, you need to be approved. And once approval affects your income, you filter yourself. Before you speak, you calculate. Before you push back, you assess risk. Before you send the email, you rewrite it. You ask yourself one quiet question. Can I afford for this to create friction? And if the answer is no, you stay silent. That's the shift. You're not optimizing for truth anymore. You're optimizing for safety. You don't pitch bold ideas. You don't attach your name to controversial positions. You don't volunteer for risky initiatives, because risky initiatives can fail, and failure can affect rating, and rating can affect payout, and payout affects your life. So you compress. You remove sharp edges. You choose agreeable over authentic. You over-deliver defensively. You stay visible. You respond quickly. You avoid conflict. You become predictable. And predictability feels safe. But safety isn't the same as strength. You don't negotiate compensation aggressively. You don't seriously explore exits. You don't walk away from misalignment. You tell yourself, now isn't the time. You tell yourself, stability matters more. You tell yourself, this is temporary. But temporary turns into default. And here's what you're not seeing. Every time you silence yourself to protect income, you reduce your leverage, because leverage requires optionality, and optionality requires the ability to leave. If you can't leave, your tone changes. If you can't leave, your posture changes. If you can't leave, your ambition changes. You measure every decision against one filter. Does this threaten my stability? You stop asking what you want. You start asking what's safe. You don't say what you really think. You don't pursue what you really want. You don't leave what you quietly resent, because your burn rate is louder than your conviction. And the longer you live like this, the more normal it feels. You tell yourself you've matured. You tell yourself risk is reckless. You tell yourself caution is wisdom. But you're not calm. You're constrained. You're not disciplined. You're dependent. And dependency reshapes identity. You start believing this smaller version of you is responsible. You start defending the very system that compresses you. You protect the image of success. You protect the narrative of stability. You protect the optics, even when it costs you voice, even when it costs you conviction, even when it costs you yourself. The income trap doesn't just reduce margin, it reduces you. And then the interruption comes. Not dramatic, not loud. An email. Restructuring. Role eliminated. Position impacted. And here's what that means for you. Your income doesn't taper, it stops. You tell yourself you're capable. You tell yourself you'll land quickly. You tell yourself this is temporary. But your burn rate isn't temporary. $9,000 every 30 days. Mortgage, car, insurance, school, subscriptions you forgot to cancel. Month 1, you're confident. Month 2, you're strategic. Month 3, you're flexible. Month 4, you're urgent. Because every month without income doesn't just reduce savings, it reduces leverage. You don't interview from strength, you interview from necessity. You don't negotiate hard, you negotiate fast. You don't ask if the role fits, you ask if the offer clears. That's compounding regret. You realize you should have built more runway. You realize you trusted variable income. You realize you scaled lifestyle faster than insulation. But realization doesn't stop the clock. And then it happens. The house goes on the market. Not as an upgrade, as a correction. The sign in the yard, the photos online, the open house on Sunday, neighbors walking through your kitchen, strangers opening your closets, you explaining it's just a transition, but you know it's not. You didn't plan this move. Volatility planned it for you. That driveway once signaled arrival. Now it signals reset. And you feel it, not just financially, socially, internally, because this isn't about square footage, it's about control. You thought you owned the house, but the house required uninterrupted income. You thought you owned the lifestyle, but the lifestyle required uninterrupted approval. You thought you owned the success, but the success required uninterrupted performance. And here's the truth you can't dodge. If you can't afford to lose it, you never owned it. If losing it would collapse you, it controlled you. If walking away would destroy you, you were never free. Income is not power, optionality is. Salary is not security, runway is. Title is not leverage, the ability to say no is. So answer this without flinching. If your income stopped tomorrow, would you still be you? Or would you become compliant? Would you negotiate or would you accept? Would you walk away or would you shrink? Because when you can say no, you're powerful. When you must say yes, you're managed. And you already know which one you are. If you've ever felt that pressure in your chest, hit that subscribe button. Because we don't build lives that depend on perfection. We build lives that survive interruption. Now be honest, are you building income or are you building insulation?